Greetings, folks. I wanted to share some of my experience I've had over decades of cleaning and maintaining cymbals. So, very briefly, I'll give you a little background. I started playing the drums in 1978, and I got my first Paiste cymbal in 1980. And shortly thereafter, I started cleaning. And it was a long process until I discovered Paiste cymbal cleaner in the early 80s. I've been using that exclusively for years, decades, up until recently. About 3 or 4 years ago, I started to seriously collect vintage Paiste cymbals. So I started all over with the cleaning process. And as many of you know, the Paiste cymbal cleaner is no longer available, has not been available for a very long time. At any rate, I had to find other cleaners, so I wanted to share my journey with all of you of what I experienced, and also the maintenance techniques that I've picked up over decades of maintaining these cymbals. So let's start with the alloys. As most of you know, Paiste basically uses 3 main alloys. I'll go over this briefly because it's covered in depth on the wiki. But basically what you have is B8, B15, and B20. And that number means the percentage of tin content in the cymbal out of tin and copper. What I found recently, after doing a lot of research on Paiste's production process and also cleaning cymbals, is that B8 is actually a very soft material compared to B20. And I found this out the hard way. B20 scratches a lot easier. It also polishes up a lot easier than B20 does. B15 obviously being the middle ground, is roughly halfway in between B8 and B20 as far as its material properties go. One of the big differences I discovered was that B8 oxidizes or tarnishes very, very easy compared to B20. B20 you can leave uncoated and you can handle it and you'll get fingerprints, but the oxidation / tarnishing process takes quite a while. With B8 you can literally just leave the cymbal sitting out and it will start to change color. And I found out very quickly that the B8 cymbals have to be coated immediately within like literally minutes, or they will start to change color. I think this is the reason in the mid to late 60s why Paiste started to apply a clear coat to their cymbals, at least to the B8 cymbals, because they couldn't sell them. By the time they got to a music store and they were handled, they were already tarnished with discoloration from fingerprints and grease and dirt and whatnot. Another thing I discovered actually a long time ago is B8, because it's a softer material, it bends. If you hit a cymbal too hard, you actually see bending on the edge of the cymbal, where with a B20 cymbal, unless it's a paper thin or a very thin cymbal, you really won't see that. It will just crack. With B8, you basically get a warning when you start to see waviness in the edge or dents on the edge of the cymbal that it will crack at some point. The cymbal is giving you a warning that you either need to change the angle you hit the cymbal, how you have the cymbal mounted, or not hit it as hard, or use a lighter stick. Another thing that I will show also in this video is edge damage, and that is really critical. I even have an old Zildjian catalog from about 1968 where they talk about repairing edge cracks and edge damage and flea bites, and they specifically say that any kind of nick, ding, or flea bite on the edge of a cymbal very well can lead to cracking. They also go in depth about crack repairs, and they are very specific, and they state that drilling a stop hole to stop a crack does not work, at least not 100% of the time. There's a substantial risk of the crack continuing. And they even show a diagram of how to grind away the edge of the cymbal to remove the crack, and I'll show that. Another thing that I discovered very early on was that, at least with Paiste cymbals, and I'm sure with all cymbals, they punch out the center hole, and that leaves a sharp edge on the top and the bottom side of the cymbal. And I've found over years that that sharp edge digs into the cymbal sleeves and basically creates kind of a divot and will cause the cymbal to basically stop moving or create more resistance. What that means is there's a large amount of stress put on that area of the mounting hole in the cymbal, and that's what can cause cracking around the mounting hole. Thin cymbals, especially thin crash cymbals, the mounting hole will actually bend. You'll see it bend from that sharp edge digging into the cymbal sleeve. So my solution is to basically take a countersink bit, like kind of a drill bit, and grind away that sharp edge. You're basically creating a chamfer, and then go in afterwards by hand with sandpaper to make sure it's smooth. But you create basically a very smooth radius on the top and the bottom edge on the mounting hole in the cymbal, and it will ride up and down on the cymbal sleeve much smoother without digging in. Let's talk about Flitz tarnish spray. This is basically my first step when I've got, especially a B8 cymbal that's really brown, really tarnished, as you can see in the video. What I will do is I will actually wipe on the spray. I used to spray it on, but it's pretty nasty, especially if you get in your eyes. You see that I'm wearing gloves to protect my hands. In the video, I'm actually using a very worn out Scotch-Brite pad. You have to be really careful with B8 cymbals because you actually will leave scratches from even a really worn out Scotch-Brite pad. So I've been really, really careful with B8. But as you could see, the Flitz breaks down the oxidation. It's a chemical process, and you see the cymbal immediately changes color. What you have left over, though, is a cymbal that's very flat, like a matte finish, and you also will see some serious pitting. There's nothing you could do about this initially because what's happened is the oxidation process has literally eaten away at the copper, and the copper basically is gone. So you actually have lost material, and that material's been gone for a long time. You just didn't see it because of all the dirt and the tarnish on the cymbal. Once you remove that, then you see the effects of oxidation. And that is one of the main reasons why I feel it is extremely important to clean cymbals. Especially when they're new, because you can either stop or slow down that process a great deal. This will change the sound of the cymbal, which some people like. I don't. My whole ideology with cleaning cymbals is when either Robert Paiste or Avidus Zildjian or Armin Zildjian were designing cymbals, they didn't go out and bury the cymbal in the backyard for 2 months and get it all dirty and tarnished and then hit it and say, that's what I want. They designed a cymbal from scratch for a particular sound when it's clean and also when it's coated. That's the end product. So anything past that is changing the original sound of the cymbal. So the next step after the initial cleaning, either with Flitz or I will use Barkeeper's Friend, mainly just to remove the tarnish / oxidation. Not polishing the cymbal at this point. You just want to get the cymbal clean enough that you can actually see any damage, any edge damage especially. And what the next step is that I do is I will go around the edge of the cymbal with really good lighting and look at all the nicks and dings, and you'll see on older cymbals there's dozens and dozens of them. They can be very, very minor. I will actually mark the bad spots where their nicks or dings are pretty substantial. The small ones I will sand by hand and then run my fingernail across them to check the smoothness. Basically what will happen is you kind of flatten out the edge a little bit, and then you have to reprofile it to get that correct radius that originally the cymbal had from the factory. The bad nicks, dings, and flea bites, I actually use a rotary sanding bit, as you could see on a drill. Now it's very warm, and I'm not taking off a lot of material. It's a very small amount of material. But I am sanding or grinding down past the deepest part of that nick or ding. Once I get a smooth finish where I know that that irregularity is gone, then I go over it with two different types of sandpaper, usually around 240 grit, to reshape the edge to get the correct radius, and then I finish it with 400. And the 400 is so fine that the edge is very smooth. It's basically a factory finish. Once this step is done, then we can move to part 2, which is the full-blown cleaning process. And I will address that in the next video.